Who's Ashley? Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Cicero Planning Board meeting. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Bloss, would you lead us off?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from our February 15th meeting. Any questions or comments? We have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve is printed.
We have a second.
Second.
Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
And I vote yes, minutes have been approved. Now we'll open the meeting to public comment. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on any active application, you may do so now. Anybody? Given nobody's approach, we'll close the public input. Move on to the first agenda item. This is for a 2-lot subdivision public hearing for the property at 5815 Sneller Road. Tim Coyer is representing the applicant. Hi, Tim.
Good evening, Tim Coyer, iNewsy and Romans Land Surveying. We're here for the public hearing for the 2-lot subdivision on Sneller Road. It's roughly 73 acres. It's zoned industrial, a slight portion on the east side is industrial. The most of it is agricultural. Looking to carve out the house and barn area located on the southwest corner of the property on Sneller Road. At that property, lot 1 will be roughly 6.6 acres. The remaining property, lot 2, is roughly 66.6 acres. I did make one change. I can hand out new sheets if you would like, but per Mark's comments, I added a note about lot 2 being not a building lot until a septic system was approved by the Onondaga Health Department. It has a revision date of February 28th, just if you guys want to see it, but otherwise the map is exactly the same.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions for Tim before we jump into the public hearing? Gentlemen? All right, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this topic? Given nobody's approach, I will close the public hearing. Seeker? I'll make a motion for a standard seeker.
Second.
Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss,
Yes.
and I vote yes on the seeker. Neil, would you propose a motion for approval, please?
Yes, you're going to move for the adoption of resolution approving the application known as minor subdivision preliminary and final plan Mid-Country Properties LLC, 8515 Sneller Road, 2 lots, Sneller Road subdivision. This approval is strictly conditioned on the following. 1, the applicant is hereby advised that pursuant to section 185(6) subsection F of the code, the applicant has 90 days from the approval to file the map. If the applicant misses the 90-day filing deadline, the approval will have expired. The applicant is further notified that the chairman of the board or the chairman of the planning board may delay signing of the final plan until the chairman verifies that the applicant has executed any and all necessary agreements with the town.
Would somebody like to make that as a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second? Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Tim. Have a good night. Tim. Next item on the agenda is a continuation of a site plan review for a proposed car wash at the corner of Bear Road and Route 11. Good evening.
Board members, I'm David Cox, Cicero Associates, and the civil engineer for the project. There we go. I'm David Cox with Cicero Associates, the civil engineer for the project, and also with me is Anthony Daniele from Royal Wash Development. So we're here for another Go Car Wash here at the corner of Brewerton and Bear Road. So just to kind of I know it's been a few months since I was here, so just a quick recap of kind of traffic flow and what we have here. So right now the existing property has 4 buildings on it that are all kind of scattered all over, and the whole site is pretty well paved, the whole site. So we're really doing cleaning that up combining all those parcels into one, making it one parcel, pushing the building back further from the road, adding a tremendous amount of green space along the front. So right now there's pavement all the way up to the sidewalk. So we're introducing a lot of green space with landscaping all along here. We're moving quite a bit of pavement on the site, so reducing overall impervious. So we're going to be reducing peak runoff, stormwater runoff rates from the site, and really helping to kind of beautify this corner that is. You got a picture of right now. Here's what we're looking at. So definitely could use some tender loving care to kind of address this area. It's a prominent corner in the town of Cicero, so we'd really like to beautify it, dress it up. Here's just another car wash, just showing kind of the landscaping, the manicure that we'd be looking at, just to really make it a very nice looking building, nice landscaping here in the town. And then well, since we were last here, one of the major takeaways was, traffic study in coordination with the New York State DOT and Onondaga DOT. So that's why it's been a few months. So we did perform the traffic study, and we did submit that to the county and to the state. That there's no other mitigation that's required from the project, minus some minor signal timing adjustments. So that was the only major recommendation as far as mitigation is concerned. On Brewerton, the New York State DOT recommended right in, right out. So that's what we have shown there. And then also on Bear Road, they wanted right in, right out as well. So that's what we have shown there. So both the New York State DOT, they're all set, ready to go. They said, submit your insurance information, and we're ready to issue the permit. And the county we've addressed all their comments as well. So they're in a good spot as well. And one other thing to just note, there was a comment before, was making sure we add some sidewalk along Bear Road. So just wanted to let you guys know that we did add that in. So now that there's sidewalk all the way around the property. Yeah, and we added the landscaping. That was more landscaping. So we did a pretty robust landscaping around the perimeter of the property. So we did need a front setback variance. So we did receive that from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I think that for the most part brings you up to speed of what we've been doing and where we've been since the last time we were here.
Thank you. We'll open up the questions. Mr. Dwell.
So you, excuse me, you can enter and exit on 11 and Bear Road?
Yes.
Okay.
It gets a little more complicated than that, right?
Yeah,
When you
so
talk about wanting to go north on Route 11 out of the project.
correct. So it on Brewerton, it would be right in, right out only. So per the DOT's request, and then on Bear,
So you can't make a left coming out on.
that's correct. And then on Bear Road, the Onondaga County DOT recommended right in, right out. We had requested full access in. I did have a conversation with James Feskin at Onondaga, just prodding him a little further, because in my opinion, as the developer, I do think it's a better site plan if it allows full access in. I do understand the right out only, because in the evening rush hour, trying to make a left out of there would be, I don't want to say impossible, but close enough to it that it would be a good idea to have people waiting or making dangerous moves to get out in a busy intersection. But I do believe people could make a left in, no different than they make a left into the restaurant right now. When I asked him if he was open to that concept, he said he would be open to discussing it, but that it would ultimately, if the town didn't want it, then he wouldn't, he's not going to make the town allow the left in. His impression was that the town didn't want it. I was under the impression that the town was open to it. And so part of what we're trying to get tonight, aside from getting an approval, which would be nice, but is a better understanding from the town on exactly what your position on that is, so that if we do want to push with Onondaga, I'm pushing with the town's consent and want. If the town doesn't want the left in, well then, you know, I'm not going to argue with the town and Onondaga. I won't win that battle. So that's the longer version of the answer, I guess.
I think it would be beneficial if you could show the board, Mark, if you could put an aerial up or something, so if somebody goes into the car wash and they want to head north on 11, what happens? Or if somebody is exiting the car wash, he wants to head east on Bear, what happens? Because I think, or if somebody is heading east on Bear, wants to enter the site, what happens? Right? Those are some conflicts with the project, the way it lays out right now.
Right. There's no question when you can find the project to right ins, right outs on both sides, then you're basically eliminating the opportunity for people going the other way in both of those directions from making a normal move into the property. Now, because we are a car wash and we do, we pick busy sites, as most of our customers are customers that come to us on a fairly frequent basis. So they're, they take the easiest movements. In other words, everybody who's heading east, who knows that it's very difficult to get into the car wash heading east, is going to come get their car washed when they're going back west. Because again, these are not tourists. These are not people on their way to Boston and are on their way to LA. These are people that live and work in this area. So if you're going to use my car wash, you're going to use it as you're heading west. And if you're going to use my car wash, you're going to use it as you're heading south on Brewerton. And very few people are going to try to do otherwise, because it's almost impossible, if not impossible, or at least very difficult at best.
Really? So let's take an example. Let's say somebody is getting their car washed and they want to head north on Route 11 when they're done.
Yeah, so just to talk about that, so the only restrictions is trying to enter the site. If you are heading eastbound on Bear, you can't really make another site. And then
Let's stick with this
Okay.
one part. We'll hit that one. Well, let's say that somebody wants to go north on Route 11 after getting their car washed. The way I envision it is they exit, they're going to do it legally. They take a right on Bear, right?
Yep.
And then they go through the plaza that's on the south. They could cut across Bear, go through that plaza, go up to Route 11 and cut across 2 lanes to head north on 11.
Yep.
That's how I would probably do it.
And they could also make a right out on 11 and head south and then turn around somewhere else if they,
True.
right.
Right.
So in any event, they're going to have to turn around somewhere.
Right.
So it's
But we're just creating conflict areas that I'm not sure is a safety, there's a safety concern with the residents with the way it's laid out right now.
I mean, it's not untypical, a lot of New York State DOT roads have right in, right out. So they're only, you're able only to get in going one direction, you're only able to get out one direction. We actually, since we have 2 roads, we're able to get 3 out of the 4 directions for coming and leaving. So it's a little better, but it's very typical, a lot of the projects we work on, a lot of other car washes we have right in, right out.
I agree, it is very typical.
Yeah.
But here you have 2 main roads, right? And just the process to get to where you want to go, I'm not sure how it works.
Yeah.
And
So there's one. So I want you guys to see that, if you want to head north on 11, what you have to do. You either have to go head south on 11 and turn around somewhere. More conflict points.
You got to turn around in almost every direction.
Or head west on Bear Road, probably go through that plaza, cut across 2 lanes of Route 11 to head north.
Just make a U in the plaza.
So now to the one you were going to mention, if you're heading east on Bear and you want to get into the project,
Right, you're not able to.
You'd either have to turn
No,
around.
You'd have to head north on 11, right? Turn around somewhere, cut across the road, turn around, and then come into the project.
Yeah, but you're making an assumption that a right in, right out is what people do. Your own new one, I've watched them. They turn left into your car wash. I've literally sat there and watched them do it. I've been in the car wash at least 3 or 4 times since it was done. And I watched that. So I think if we think the right in, right out is a game changer and everybody pays attention to it, they don't. Drivers are idiots. And I don't think we as a planning board can be smart enough to eliminate all the possibilities that these idiots will do. You know, Mark made it very clear that the way he would do it, one of the ways he would do it is very legal, takes a little bit of time, but is relatively safe. The next guy won't necessarily do that. You know, every time I see a right in and right out, they have one near my apartment complex. It's a joke. There's right in, right out opposite each other. And whether it's me going to church on Sunday or whatever it is, I've watched people go left out of a right in, right out only.
And we've made that same argument with many meetings with the DOT, and, you know, unfortunately, they're the DOT, and when they say, you know, now the other point I would make, and we don't disagree with the points you're making. I mean, there is no, I
No, you
can't
don't.
magically make that answer go away. Other than, you know, the 2 points I guess I would make is that if it's that difficult to do, you're probably not going to do it that often, because you may not feel safe doing it. And frankly, it's a pain in the butt. And so you're more apt to use my facility when you're going the other way, which you will do, right? I mean, if you're heading to, in your example, if I'm heading east on Bear, I'm probably going to head west at some point, not too far after, because that's just how it works. And so that's kind of my first point. And I guess my second point for this whole site is, again, do I believe it's a perfect scenario? I do not. It obviously is not. But I also believe that it's a busy intersection, and whether it's going to be a car wash or it's going to be a Taco Bell or a Burger King or Starbucks, I mean, somebody else is going to be standing up here with a similar situation. You're not going to put something, you know, a doctor's office isn't going to go there, and a low intensity use is not going to go there. So,
Well, we don't know that.
But
yeah.
even if it's a low intensity use, the DOT is still gonna have the same stance.
Right.
You
But
know,
it would-
it doesn't matter what the use is,
Yeah.
they're gonna have the same stance. So no matter what goes there, it's gonna be right in, right out.
How many cars go through your wash on a busy day in an hour?
On an average day, we wash about 350 to 400 cars on an average day, and that's throughout the day. To answer your question more, what you're looking for on that busy Saturday where it's jamming, we may have, you know, 90 to 100 cars in 1 hour. It's unusual, but it does happen. I mean, that is not average, but you're asking about those extreme situations.
not seen, now granted, I'm not by your new one, the one that I go to all the time, but I have never seen cars on 31 waiting to pull into your site.
No, and that's the myth with we just drove by it on our way here, and there were 2 cars waiting to get a car wash, you know, and I assert to you, with the exception of that sunny Saturday, you know, coming up here in about a month where it will be busy, most of the time, it's not going to be busy. And frankly, most of the time, again, my conversation with Onondaga County is that most of the time, if you take away rush hour, and we know what rush hour is, so I'm not discounting it, I'm not ignoring it, but I'm also saying it's an hour and a half out of 24 hours a day. You could make a left into this car wash, and you could make a left out, and you wouldn't have much conflict. During rush hour, absolutely not. It's a bad idea. And we even proposed, you know, trying to limit it with signage, but to your point, you know, people don't care about signs, so that doesn't really work. What people care about is that there's cars lined up for 2,000 feet, and there's no way in heck I'm going to make this left, so I'm going to make it right. And that's really, it's how it's supposed to work, but it's hard to convince DOT that's a solution.
How long does it take averagely, be constant going through the wash itself?
But from when you pull in to when you are done getting your car washed, it's about 3.5 to 4 minutes. You're about 2 minutes actually in the tunnel and then another 2 minutes of, getting through the little kiosk. That's assuming you don't vacuum your car. Obviously, if you vacuum, it's going to take you longer.
Basically, my main issue is when they come out of the car wash, there's almost no room for staging areas for 2 or 3 cars waiting to get out on the Bear Road, for example. And if somebody came around the car wash, wanted to go to the vacuum, if those cars are sitting there, they can't get to the vacuums.
You mean they can't get out of the car wash?
No, if it,
You're waiting to get out on 31 and turn right. There's 2 cars there.
Yeah.
You block the lane that goes around to get to the vacuum.
You're right. I mean, again, you're most likely not, especially if it's right out only. I mean, you're not waiting very long to make a right out only. You're going to be out there pretty quick. And as far as from an internal safety mechanism, there are several different mechanisms that will actually stop the car wash. It's a conveyor. And so there's a pad outside of the car wash. There's also cameras that are hooked up to a computer. And so that if cars stop, the whole thing stops. Right. It's not like a cartoon where cars are just going to keep piling out and pushing cars into the road.
that
But
was my other point.
Yeah.
You got 3 cars, at the exit. And the other cars coming out of the wash,
They'll stop.
you stop them?
the car wash itself will stop. So you'll be stopped inside the car wash until things move and,
It's all automatic.
yeah, automated.
So it's a Delta Sonic idea where it moves the car through.
It's a conveyor, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stop it.
You mean you haven't gone there and seen it, Jim?
I haven't gone to the new one yet.
I was just curious, do brushes stop also?
They do. Everything stops.
'Cause otherwise
And-
you're sitting around.
Right. You don't want that. And from a safety standpoint, if somebody gets out of their car, which they shouldn't do, but if they do, you definitely don't want things on when that happens.
You've had people do that?
We've had people do a lot of things, but yes, we have
I
had.
mean, I
people-
know there's a dumb ad right now for Liberty Mutual or whatever with a guy in a car wash, but people don't, they actually get out of their car.
Not often. We've had somebody do it, especially if it's for an extended, we've had situations where, there might be an accident. At the end, somebody hit somebody else. So everybody stops and now it's 5-10 minutes. So our employees will actually go into the wash and say, hey, it's going to be 5-10 minutes if you want to get out. Because some people get claustrophobic. And so get out of your car, we'll get your car out in 5 or 10 minutes once we clear up the exit.
About how many gallons do you figure to go through the car wash that you would?
It's about 30 gallons per vehicle that get used of water. Is that what you're asking? Compared to, statistically, when you wash your car at home, you use about 100 gallons of water. And most car washes, the average around the country is about 45 to 50 gallons an hour. We use higher pressure, lower nozzles, try to be a little more environmentally friendly that way.
I think I asked you last time you were here, what percentage of the water is recycled?
It changes depending on the time of the year because of salt and other things in the water. The system we use says it recycles about 40%. Realistically, at the end of the year, I think we probably recycle more like 15% when it's all said and done.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but the road that I travel a lot, north on 11, turn right on Route 31 headed east. And it's fairly heavy traffic. Somebody will make a left-hand turn to get into that car wash. And what does that do? It just takes an instant and it backs all that traffic right up on 31. And then, of course, you can't turn off Route 11. And they'll sit there because there's traffic coming west on 31. And I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but
Yeah.
that's.
I mean, in
reality.
this scenario,
Illegal turn?
Yeah.
yeah. And if in this scenario, if somebody were to do that, which I mean, I think it's safer if we let them do it instead of saying they can't. But you have 2 left turn lanes here. So even if, again, it's still bad to have somebody blocking a left turn lane, but at least in this scenario, there's another left turn lane. So, it's not one line of traffic that all of a sudden you're creating gridlock. You'd have to go around that person, which I'm sure nobody likes to do. But it's a little different scenario here. And you're not going to encounter that heading north on Main because there's an actual median on Brewerton. So, I mean, you'd have to be a lot more bold than most to make that illegal left on 11.
So I've used the facility a few times myself, and I went by on a nice sunny day after some not fun weather, and the traffic flow was working really well. And the fact that you acquired that parcel that goes on Route 11, really helps with flow and being able to, even if you want to head east on 31, you can do it just by going out on 11, going through the light. So it works. Has there been any discussion between yourselves and Copper Top?
We have reached out and, you know, they're not really receptive because in the end of the day, you know, what's in it for them other than they, you know, they don't really want the cars going through their parking lot. And there's really not a good answer to that. I mean,
Car wash.
yeah, we've tried, believe me, that was low hanging fruit. We offered that, but, yeah, they're not really open to it because they feel it compromises their property and wear and tear on their parking lot and conflicts with their patrons. You know, if there were, I mean, we would certainly, we've done this on other projects and I don't know how you do it mechanically from a legal standpoint or a deed standpoint. But I mean, if there was a redevelopment of the Copper Top, which it's fairly successful and I can't imagine it's going to happen anytime soon, you know, we would be open to putting something in the deed saying that we would, you know, at that point, close those curb cuts and do something together. But, you know, that's a little bit of a pipe dream as far as the reality of when and if that happens.
One of the, I guess the two things, the way I would ultimately solve the problem on 31 is you end up with a median that is a piece of solid concrete that probably goes from Route 11 to the turn onto 81. That so people cannot make a left turn either way. That's the only way it's going to stop. I mean, you put little cones up or something, people drive over those.
State doesn't want to do that though.
Charge the DOT, so forget that. But go back to the one we're talking about. If you're going east on Bear, I'm just wondering whether you're going to sound a little stupid, but you almost wonder if we ought to have a right and left in there because people are going to do it. So is it safer if the driveway and the entrance is wide enough to take a car coming, you know?
It wouldn't really have to be much wider. It's configured a little bit differently. And again, to your point, somebody can make a left in there if they want, and they probably will, you know, I mean, that's the reality. So
They end up cutting
rather
over
than
the curb,
fighting
but
it,
you know, they may end up cutting over the curb, but
Right.
if that entrance was more straight, then they could do it quicker and safer. So, I mean, I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to having, I don't know whether the rest of my cohorts would say it, but, I'd let them have a left. I'd let you go to the DOT and say, yeah, we're okay with a left in, because we know it'll be somewhat controlled.
and I can't guarantee he's going to say, okay,
Right.
but he's open to having the discussion, but he wanted me, you know, I have to go back to him and say, this is what the town wants. And that's what I want. Would you be open to it?
It's
If I,
not what we want is, I would say.
What
it's
makes more
what we would
sense.
Accept. And I don't know whether we as a board would say that or not.
I think I like that better than no left and turn in, but I don't think that takes care of the other issues. I think you need to go back to Copper Top.
Well, I don't think Copper Top's ever gonna let you do, from an insurance standpoint. You know, they're in tough shape as it is if one of their employees or one of their visitors get hit by a car that's also going to Copper Top. As opposed to, or they get hit by a guy that came out of the car wash.
yeah. And one of their comments too was, you know, they're very sensitive about their parking. You know, they fill up
They
that
just
parking
expanded
lot
it and-
and, you know, it doesn't matter how you cut it. If I'm going to have cross access with them, it's going to require, you know, them losing probably at least 4 or 5 parking spots, if not more, probably 4 or 5. It could be done, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, I guess why would they want that? Why would they say yes? If, because I don't have any
That's between you and
leverage.
them, right?
Yeah. But I can't
Not my
control.
negotiation.
Yeah.
I got to worry about public safety and good flow, and
I understand.
I like your project. You know, I like this one over here. I like the project. I like cleaning this up. There's a lot of things I like about it, but for me, I'm concerned about the traffic pattern. And does everything else outweigh that? I'm not so sure.
And as I mentioned before, that any project that goes there is gonna have the same issue essentially.
I think the traffic will take care of itself. Just like I think with the convenience store that we just approved last time, traffic's gonna take care of itself. Either the people are gonna have a trouble getting in there and won't use the place, or they'll figure out how they're gonna do it without hopefully endangering their lives. I mean, I will probably never go to that one because of where I live and what I normally do. I will probably always be going to this one. But somebody else that doesn't live where I do would always be going to this new one.
And the majority of users are what we call fast pass members. So it's people who have the regular subscription. So it's people who go there on a regular basis. And when you go someplace on a regular basis, you're going to figure out to use it when it works the best and is the best flow for you, for sure.
I agree with that. I think that's the situation with the left end over here. People didn't realize it at first, and now
Right.
they know and they can go down Route 11. So I think some of that will go away. Well, how about everybody else give their input on the traffic part of it?
I agree with what you said.
And I don't think there's any
You agree with
good answer,
With you.
me?
but letting the traffic work itself out. About the only way it's gonna happen.
So you lean more towards Mr. Snyder. Mr. Bloss, that puts all the pressure on you.
We know where you live.
I can just, all I can see is it's gonna get worse. I left out the part where right here next to your car wash I like the car wash. I've used it with my truck. We do a good job. But the same thing happens with the bank right there on the corner. If you're coming west on Route 31, and I don't know, maybe the county traffic people will come up with something, but there's gotta be a way where we can sort that out so that it works for everybody. Like you said, maybe we gotta have the county help us with a island or something so people can't make an illegal turn.
They don't like those. Snow removal is it's not fun for them.
Yeah. Actually, Copper Top has the same situation, right in, right out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but they can go out on Bear Road now that they've expanded and have the bigger
Yeah.
parking lot,
Yeah,
so.
they're further away from.
they
the
can go
intersection.
left on Bear. Upper Top can go left on Bear.
Yeah, they're,
It's far enough away.
Is it?
They got full access both ways. That's why it would be ideal if that entrance could be shared with the two projects. Wish we grabbed an easement when they were here. Well, I don't know. Let's talk about some other stuff for now. So when you were here last time, I had talked about the vacuums. And they're not as attractive as the building, and they're on Route 11, but nothing's happened with that.
I think what we were trying to do to address that was add the landscaping along Route 11 so that, the prominent, like this site plan that you're seeing up here doesn't show the trees, but by putting more vegetation between Route 11 and the vacuums, it screens that from being just a wide, just grass and a bunch of sticks up like vacuums. So, it'll break it up. I guess whether or not they're attractive enough is in the eyes of the beholder, but I don't think they're ugly. I think they're a commercial use and they're certainly a convenience for the users. And again, I've been involved in government. I've sat on boards. So I know at the end of the day, the board's obligation is to end up with the best project possible, given all the factors that are involved. And, if it's a matter of giving up some vacuums to get the site plan approved, obviously, you know, I'm not, I'm a business person and, you know, I'm not removing the vax doesn't change the traffic situation. They're unrelated
No,
factors.
no, yeah.
But, you know, if that were if that tipped the scale and made it, you know, adding a little more green space up front by eliminating that line of vacuums.
Might give you some additional parking that you could share with your neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure they'd want to come park over there, but
Well, you'd have to
Yeah.
rearrange the site, but
yeah.
Mark, is there a color that is less obtrusive than what they've got now? I mean, to me, it doesn't matter, but most people do care about colors and
They do stand out.
they do different, you do different colors.
So I believe the ones that are at the current location on 31 are blue.
I think so.
You know, and we have at certain sites made them black, you know, which kind of makes them go away a little bit more, less stand out. You know, I know we had an issue with the lighting, which I agreed with the town on. And so the lights that for some reason, you know, were installed with multicolor and it looked like a little rainbowish going on. So at Cicero now they're just white and they've been dimmed a little bit. And I believe they have an application in whatever, that's a different topic. But so these would just be white and they could be a different color that would be less aggressive than blue and they would be less imposing, especially behind landscape.
I gotta say that I've never, as many times that I go by this one and others that have two banks of vacuums, I never seen more than 3 or 4 at a time being used.
Yeah, and it's those Saturdays where it's really busy. I mean, you can say the same with the wash itself, you know, I mean, it's really not that busy most of the time. It's really busy every once in a while. And it's the same with the vax, but to your point, you know, it wouldn't be, it wouldn't mean the difference between success and failure if we remove some of the vax.
Because what do you have, about counting them 8 or 10, 12 in a row?
I believe there's 8.
9 on this side.
8 on one side, 9 on the other.
Mhm.
And we'd have to leave the because we do have a handicap parking spot there that we need.
Sure.
I'm gonna go back in order. Sorry, I jumped out of order. Jim, why don't you finish up? Did you have anything other than?
No, I'm good.
Chuck,
I'll second.
Donald,
Set for now.
Donald?
Set.
So.
Let's do it.
Do what?
Approve it.
Well, I definitely want to see some reduction in vacuums and some more green space up there. So without that, I'm a no, but you can certainly make a motion if you'd like to. And I would also like for you to go back to Copper Top and try and work out that deal.
Yeah, we haven't completed a full review of this. We haven't reviewed and in detail any of this information really until we get this issue with traffic pattern resolved and that type of thing. So I personally would not recommend a consideration of approval tonight.
Full access on Bear Road that,
Yeah, I mean, we haven't looked at the sign package, any of that type of stuff in any sort of detail at this point.
and then detail on the vacuums, the color.
And landscaping, all that. And whether you want the lighting on the vacuums or not, again, because those were not approved originally at the Route 31 site.
Do you put lights on all of them?
We typically do, yes, yes. I think it wasn't on the plans that we submitted at that time, so we agree with the town that and we're coming back in with an application for those, which obviously at that point it's up to the town to.
Yep.
This-
It is shown on these plans, though.
It is shown on these, but. Yeah. You know, and I guess where I would. To be truthful, we weren't expecting to get a vote tonight. We were more coming to get additional feedback, find out where the board was specifically on the traffic stuff, because I think that's really, the deciding factor. And to whether or not this board would want me to go back to Onondaga. You've stated, you would like me to go back to Copper Top and see if there's any possibility there, and I will do that. Based on my last conversation, I don't hold a lot of hope in that conversation, but that doesn't mean I can't ask again and try to be a little
Car wash.
more persuasive. But do I go back to Onondaga and DOT and tell them that the town would be favorable to a full ingress left in and right in, because that's what we're talking about on Bear Road, instead of just the right in, which would eliminate some of the conflict. And if the board would like me to do that, but I would need to go to them and say, this is what, and obviously it doesn't have to, I don't know how that works engineering wise. I mean, I certainly can't speak for the board unless the board tells me to.
Mark, what are your thoughts on that?
I guess I'd have to look a little closer to traffic study and give you an opinion.
Yeah, I'm no expert, but I kind of like it better because they're gonna do it anyways. Number one, number two, if they don't, they gotta go up Route 11, turn around, come back. But from an engineering standpoint, I'd be curious to know how you felt about it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I guess I'd like to look at the study and see what it said relative to the amount of gaps available to make that
Better
movement.
for the business too.
I mean, so. And again, I guess if the county DOT would allow it, that, it might be acceptable. You got a little bit of a median there, but I don't think it's a full width
Right.
median where you can pull off and wait to make a left there without blocking that lane.
But you do have 2 left turns there.
No,
So-
you do.
Yeah, but you- and
The
you'd still
left
be
one- the left
blocking
one
one of
tends to
them.
get utilized more heavily than the other, though. That's just the nature of that.
Steve? I'm sorry, Chuck, do you have something?
I was just gonna mention, had a couple of comments about, is there a way of muffling the sound of those vacuums? Did you get a few of those going? I mean, they're loud.
Yeah, so we do use technology. They, when the car isn't right under it, they close, so it cuts the airflow going in and it significantly reduces the noise. But traditionally, when we've done sound studies on these, and because the car wash exit is facing the road, generally the road noise is louder than the vacuums. Not to say you won't hear them, but the road noise is louder, which is why we typically have the exit of the tunnel facing the road when we can, because when you do that, nobody complains. If you do it facing a business to the side, or certainly residents on the back or something, then it'll, it's going to be a much more noticeable
Noise
sound.
is coming out of the building more so than the back.
Correct. So most of the noise is coming right out of the building into the road, which doesn't really affect anything.
Yep. All set. Okay, anything else? Okay. Anything else from you?
No. So, I guess maybe we'll touch base. And
Well, yeah, I'll start with the complete review here and comments.
yeah, and we'll take it, we'll look at those backs, pull them back, adjust the site plan. If we are going to have full access from Bear, if we do end up going in that direction, I'm sure we'll have to modify that curb cut a little bit to make it, we would probably pull it a little farther away from the intersection, and it would be designed different. And again, that's pending Onondaga County DOT's blessing on that as well.
Okay,
And I will reach out to Copper Top, try to throw some charm on them and see where it goes.
please. Great. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is for a proposed used automotive retail store. This is a continuation of a site plan for the property at 7687 7785 Frontage Road.
All right, good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chairman. My name is Brad Loth. I'm with CenterPoint. We are CarMax's nationwide development consultant, and we were here with you in the fall to discuss the initial application, and we're here today to continue that discussion. So on the screen, you are looking at our revised site plan. And we have gone through several iterations of this plan to come to what we feel is an agreeable solution for all of the access topics that we discussed last time. We'll get into some topics about parking and lighting, landscaping, and feel like we are prepared to discuss all of that this evening. So I'll start with just a few kind of refreshers. I don't have the old plan with me. I don't think it's available, but I'll just kind of go through a couple pointers. So the dark shaded area is conveniently heavy duty pavement. So it shows the access point there. So that used to be, it had parking on either side. And then the middle island area was reconfigured to have parking and then parking all along the back row. The truck loading was closer to frontage road, where now we have parking shown there. So the circulation really flows a lot better where a truck, because CarMax, brings in their car carriers and has a designated loading and unloading area. That's on the north side of the page there with one stripe there. So they actually come in and unload. It's north-south, but left-right on this page, and then go out the new, oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, that'd be a little easier to point to things. Okay. I did? Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay, got it. Okay, so that is the truck loading and unloading area there. It used to be down here. We've since reconfigured this, and there used to be parking here and parking here. This now acts more as a access point to the remaining shopping center because there's no longer any parking. So you're not going to have vehicles entering and exiting into what's supposed to act as an access point. So we feel that is much more efficient and much more clear for anybody using that access point to enter into the shopping center or to the CarMax. This entrance here was reconfigured, and we talked about leaving the existing access point as is, and so that's there today as well. And we did not have the cut through into the shopping center on the last plan that you all received, so that is now accessible and will lead into kind of matching up with an existing row of parking there. So getting into maybe a couple other items. So we talked about adding some shrubs. The landscape plan is in your packet, not on the screen here, but we did add shrubbery around the guardrail. So that's to screen, the guardrail for aesthetics, and added some additional trees there. We originally had landscaping. This asphalt was much tighter to the right-of-way line, and with the reconfiguration was able to be pulled back, and the landscaping, all the trees are within the CarMax property, not in the right-of-way. We've also worked with Aqua and the county sewer folks and came to a better resolution on the rerouting of the sewer. So the sewer and water were originally coming through the right of way here. They were very close together. We were talking about separation distances, things like that. We've since been able to agree with Aqua to come across Circle Drive and with a direct bore and tie into the water across the street. So then that's only in this right of way area here. The sewer now is by itself in this area, so we no longer have the separation concern there. And I believe those are the majority of the changes that we've made since we've last seen you all. We have the staff report and have comments on all of the questions, and we were free to start wherever you guys would like.
You can go through the questions.
Okay. I think we can go ahead and start with lighting. I know that's a topic that was not discussed in great detail the last time we were here. And is brought up in the staff report on this agenda. So county engineers are requesting that there's a maximum of 8 foot candles on the site. That's well below a industry standard for a car dealership. And I wanted to kind of go through some specifics of the lighting plans. And I realize you received the lighting plans a little late, so I apologize for that. And I can go through the numbers here tonight. The lighting plan that you have in your packet was what was originally submitted when we were working to get on the agenda. On that plan, you will see in the sales area, which is the front row on Circle Drive, you'll see a maximum foot candle of 48 and an average of 21.85. Starting with the different areas again, the sales area will be the brightest of the 3 parking areas. You know, CarMax has 100% of their inventory outside. There is no indoor sales component. And we would like a customer that's coming at noon when it's bright and sunny out, and a customer coming at 8:30 in the winter to see the same vehicle, see those imperfections, see a dent or a scratch, because CarMax again is 100% used vehicles. There are no new cars being sold at CarMax. So we want to know that they know what they're buying. So since that plan and since the comments that were received from town engineers, we have since reduced that lighting level 37%. So the plan that you received a few days ago prior to this meeting is a maximum of 30 with an average of 15.7. And to expand on that, that is the operating light levels. So you received 2 lighting plans a few days ago, the operating light levels and an after hours plan. So CarMax, maybe unlike other dealerships, I'm not exactly sure, but I believe others just keep the lights on all night long. CarMax actually reduces them to a security lighting level 1 hour after the store is complete with operations and all the employees have left. So the second plan that you received is the after hours plan. And again, I'm only speaking to the sales lot for right now because that is the brightest section. In the after hours plan, the maximum is 15 and the average is 7.86. So those lighting levels are very much within the industry standard of lighting for a car dealership. So to speak on some of the other areas, the customer employee parking and the staging areas are the 2 main other areas on the site. At an operating level, we are at 14 max and 7.14 average. And then on a after hours plan, we're at a max 7 and a 3.5 average. So kind of putting a limit of 8 foot candles as a max around the site, just based on the different uses of different areas, we just don't feel is achievable. 8 foot candles max also significantly reduces the single point light, because when you have an average, if you have a max of 8, your average goes down significantly, and you have spaces within the sales display that are probably within like 2 to 3 foot candles. And it's just not enough. Really, 2 to 3 foot candles is not enough even for a security lighting. You know, you could trip over a curb at 2 to 3 foot candles. So a max significantly reduces the average, and then therefore just kind of makes the whole operation not very functional. So I'll leave that open to questions. I know I threw a lot of numbers at you.
Have you had a chance to review the new lighting plan?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I mean, I'll just speak in generalities. I mean, 8 foot candles is what this board has strived to achieve for quite a while. And I mean, you can go to the new
Ever
Royal
since
Car
the-
Wash. Yeah, exactly. Ever since Drivers Village. And you could go to any of the sites that we've done, and I think you'll find them adequately lighted. And you could go up to, Royal Car Wash and go see what that 8-foot candle max, gives you. The industry standard might be the car display industry. That's not really the engineering, illuminating engineers requirements. Yeah, I think ATMs, I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm too far off. Those require 12-foot candles. And we allow that 12-foot candles in that 8 to 15-foot area or whatever the specifics are relative to lighting. So to give you an idea of what we're talking about with foot candles and illumination levels that we've typically asked for and gotten on recent development projects. So you could go out and look at some of those areas right now and, Popeyes, any of the new things we've done, right? I mean, that's what we've asked for, and to see if that's sufficient. I mean, certainly when you start getting up into the 20s, 30s, I mean, that's 3-4 times. And again, I think I'd have to go back and look, but the 30s and 40s are what was Drivers Village. And they went back and reduced their levels after some time, and also institute, reduction of the lighting at night, that type of thing. So I would stick with the recommendation at 8-foot candles max. The board's obviously able to do, whatever they choose to do.
I want the 8-foot.
If you don't feel that's quite enough, can you just add some more lights?
Right, and we have worked with lighting consultants in the past, and I do have some information. I'm by no means a lighting expert, but yeah.
Hey, good evening. I'm Brian Pulsifer with CarMax out of Richmond, Virginia, our home office. Just want to reiterate the fact, or something that Brad said about, and our entire inventory is used vehicles. So all of our vehicles have imperfections, and so we want those customers to be able to see those.
I understand that, but you know what? We have some requirements here in town, and the 8-foot is what we're gonna go with,
Is the 8-foot's the requirement?
max.
Okay. Based on the code.
That's my perspective. I'm only one vote, but if anybody else disagrees, please speak up. But that's what we've been doing. Light pollution is an issue. People lost their evenings when Drivers Village was at 30. They were calling everybody. So from my perspective, that's not a negotiable item, but I'm going to certainly defer to the rest of my board members.
If we
I
were,
defer to my engineer.
Yeah, me too.
so just a question. So Drivers Village now has reduced light levels so they're less than the original approved.
Yes.
Okay, so
Significant.
so you are accepting those light levels, correct? So are those meeting the 8-foot candle? I'm trying to go for a comparison. I drove out there today, so I just want to have a visual about what I can compare to.
Well, they did that on their own, right?
Yeah.
They had the approval for the.
Yeah, they had approved light levels, and then they went through and modified the lighting. Yes.
Okay, so they're meeting the 8-foot.
No, I can't say that.
Okay.
They did it
I
without-
doubt they are, quite
Yeah,
honestly,
they're
but
definitely, yeah, they're not at 8.
If we were to provide something similar to what they're providing now, would that be acceptable?
8-foot.
Okay, 8-foot, it really is, out of the 240 CarMaxes around the country, there's nothing close to that. So it's just not an achievable level in the sales display. And I'd like to just discuss that security.
This intersection's busy with traffic all day, all night long. It's just, maybe it's the wrong spot for you then.
Okay, I mean, again, I would like to talk about the average versus a max, because if you have a max of 8, then your average in.
8.
And again, that's a code requirement.
It's board discretion. So it's up to them. They look at all the facts and it's up to them. Heard it 4 times.
If anybody disagrees, please speak
Well,
up.
I guess I'm just concerned. I mean, if we go to we have two major car situations in our town. If we go to them, are we gonna find 8-foot candles is the maximum, or are we gonna find something more than that? Because
Whatever you
Well,
said
yeah.
for each project
Yeah.
is the maximum.
Yeah, so Dryers Village was approved, I don't know, 20 years ago, I guess.
Maybe more.
They've been there quite a while, and at that time, that's what was approved. Okay, but really, since that time, after people saw the impacts of the type of light, those light levels, our recommendations have, consistently been to maintain a maximum of 8-foot candles. Now, would I say at some points, do we get a lighting plan and it might have 10 or something like that in a max in a few little areas? That's, there's a little discretion there, right? And Mark, I don't want to, counter the, your
I defer to you,
yeah, I don't want to counter that.
Comes
So,
lights.
so if we've got some minor areas where it exceeds that, we've certainly accepted it. It is a discretionary item. So that's why I've asked the applicant to come in and discuss it with the board and make sure that the board is in agreement with our recommendations or is willing to provide, some leniency from our recommendations. So I kind of leave that up to the board, and that's why we've asked them to come in and discuss that with you.
Okay, and we will certainly go back and take another look at this. I'm not here to try to convince you to let us have what's, the 30. We can go back and take another look at it. I would like to say again that we are really in the higher levels are only talking about the sales display area. If you go back and look at the plan that we provided at a security level, the customer employee lot is at 7.2 max. Sales staging is 7.1 max. And it's the sales lot that's at 15 max. Average below 8 and everything else well below 8. So if we could get it closer to that security lighting level for an operating, we'd still be looking for above 8 only in this sales display, and we could try to get closer to that.
But the sales display is right on Circle Drive.
That's correct.
That's where people are driving through and getting light in their eyes. Again, I want to hear from the rest of you because
I mean, Circle Drive is very commercial. There's no residents nearby, at least the plaza that you're in.
Right.
Or recommended to be in. I'm
But
afraid that I would take a light meter and I would go to a couple of car lots, Drivers Village and the other one on Route 11, and I'd say, what do we have there? And, but you did also say that an hour after closing, you go down to the security level, which we said is about 8. So, we obviously have no problem with your lighting level, when you're closed.
Well, there still is that 15 that we would like to, yeah, in the sales at the security level is 15. But yes, we have, taken the lighting meters out before, so we can certainly take a look at that. Drivers Village, we were, over there before the meeting, wasn't quite dark enough, but we did see when they were on, and really not looking for any more than that. And if that's certainly if they've reduced them, then I don't know if the complaints have gone down or anything like that, but yeah, would certainly want to be at least within the realm of the competition, and just like the general area. Don't want to be the darkest car lot on the strip. So we will.
I've just finished a situation where I had to rent a light meter to prove that the situation I was observing was wrong.
Yeah.
And I did that, and the code office conformed to that. And we now have a lighting level in our buildings that should be. And I'm saying that based on what our engineer is saying, that that's great, except if what we have in our other major lots are more during the display time, then I think we ought to really look at that number, and that would be something that you would do and come back to with us.
Okay. Understood.
You know that Drivers Village does turn the lights off or down a lot when they're closed. But I can't believe they're at 8 during the major nighttime display area.
No, they're not. I'm not gonna argue that point. I guess what my point is that there was a lesson learned from Drivers Village. And we've tried to adhere to that lesson with new projects. And I would say we've done that.
And it's not just residential use that you're concerned with, right? It's the traffic going up and down Circle Drive with the lights in their eyes and needing to be able to see traffic. You know, it's just a safety
Well,
situation.
depending on how we have them put their lights on the pole or whatever.
I was just gonna,
They shouldn't be coming into the eyes of the drivers. If that's the case, we got a bad lighting layout.
No, they're definitely gonna be, well, we highly recommend full cutoff type fixtures with shields to prevent light from spilling out
Right.
off the property.
and I was just gonna touch on that, especially the ones right along Circle Drive. They are not the 4-head fixture along the front. They are the single or double fixture that point into the site. They have a full cutoff and shield on them. That's standard along the perimeter. And then on the interior, they are a double head. I believe they're double head. There's a couple triple heads, but they don't point out towards the road. They all point kind of within the site. And again, the perimeter is all pointing into the site, nothing out onto the road.
Jim, you haven't mentioned lights yet. You want to talk about them?
No, I think you well covered it.
Chuck,
Same on the lighting.
Dan, anything? Anything?
I really appreciate it. One of the things I came here today to say I would never approve it if we didn't do something like you've shown with the road. Because the plaza came here first, you're second, and I was of the feeling that with the driveway being way down there, the people in that plaza who came before you were going to be suffering some problems. Therefore, you putting that driveway in, which comes close to what's there now,
Right.
that really helped. Otherwise, I wasn't even going to talk about the project.
That works well. I agree.
Right, yeah, and that's why it's been so long since we've been back here. We didn't want to come with something that we didn't feel addressed your concerns. Okay, well, I think, are we okay to move on from lighting? So I think,
I agree with them on the 8-foot candle power and all that. I think 8's the magic number.
okay,
With some acceptable variations that our engineers review.
okay. We will take another look at it. All right, so moving on to a couple of other comments. So we do not have stormwater designed yet. There's been so much fluctuation in the site plan with, different green space areas, different like layouts, different inlet locations. It just hasn't been, we want to make sure that this site plan works before we get into a full-blown stormwater design. So just wanted to let you know the comment response is that it will be forthcoming in a future submittal. Once we feel that, we all agree with the layout and we can get started on that.
I guess, can I interrupt for just a second? And the interest of time. So I don't think we need to go through all these comments necessarily here. Because I think there's a lot of things such as stormwater that are going to be addressed, and between ourselves, we can take care of. There's a few items I'd highlight, maybe that the board's input is needed more specifically on. So maybe if we can just concentrate on those, and I guess the first one I'll bring up is the parking lot and the dimensioning of the parking spaces. I guess I'm going to rely on Steve to put some input in here, and So basically the issue. Basically the issue is the town code. Requires a parking space to be, I believe it's what, 9 by 18, Steve? Is that
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
With a 22-foot aisle. And the definition of the parking space is basically a place where a vehicle is temporarily stored. I think that's pretty much the,
Yeah, well,
Right.
I'll get it out. We'll read it.
yeah. So while Steve looking at that, I'll explain. So what's being proposed in the display area are 9 by 17 spaces with a 20-foot wide drive aisle. So those do not meet the code and therefore either need a variance or the board may have some discretion, might have to lean on Neil here too, to say that those aren't parking spaces, they're display spaces. And so you might be able to make that decision. The problem or issue that might arise should you do that is if at some point the use on this site changes and that area starts to be utilized as a parking lot for customers, then it's substandard, right? And you'd either have to redo the layout, which you could lose a row of parking, but then you start looking at the depth of the curved areas and those types of things and light pole layouts, and then you start to, run into a mess. So Steve, I guess, why don't you read the definition?
So the definition of a parking space is off-street space used for the temporary location of a motor vehicle. So it's pretty,
And so that, so if we decide those are not, that those are parking spaces, not display.
Yeah,
Definition of temporary.
yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, well, what I think one would argue that is meant, the intent of that is for patrons of an establishment for frequenting a business. This would be, as Mark said, used for display. And the problem becomes later, if this business moves on, then what do? We have to condition this approval that this is only display area only, and we come back for some sort of modification for a following user if they use it for something, different. And then it does, that would be the problem then of the next user. What happens with the lighting spacing and all that jazz with, with that, like, as Mark says, that would be a mess later.
Whose interpretation is it now? Steve?
I think you could go with the display, but it'd have to be marked on the site plan as display only. And it'd have to be clear that it's not for parking by the patrons or, park cars.
I
think
think
we
I'd
could-
want
Well,
one,
that might get you out of it for that particular area that we're talking about on the plan.
Yeah, and that's the other area is comply. It's just this display area where they intend on displaying the vehicles that is the issue.
I think the other thing, Neil, if we allow those dimensions to be used in the display area, I think we have to say that the vehicles in the display area will not be driven by anybody but a employee of CarMax. Because, I'm used to a longer, wider spot. I'm
Right.
used to more driveway. Therefore, if I go out and they say, well, Don, you can get in that car, and no, I don't think.
Right, and we agree with all of that because that's the way that the site operates. So we have no issue. I think that's the kind of the way we opened up the discussion at the initial application as we described the different areas. Yeah, that display area is fully secured. The gate right here is the security gate. That thing's not showing. There it is, right there. That's the security gate. Only CarMax employees are moving any of those vehicles. Not until it enters into the public side of this gate right here does the customer have an opportunity to enter that vehicle.
So
And-
you would mark your plan accordingly.
Certainly, yeah. We have no issue doing that. That's just the way the
So
site
can I
operates.
walk around in the display area? Or do you?
Yes, you can walk in by foot. You can walk around and look at the vehicles. But if you wanted to take a car for a test drive, you would find an associate. They would get the keys for that vehicle, drive it through the secured gate to the public side of that gate. Then the customer gets in and takes it for their test drive. When they bring it back, They drop it off at this area right here that says service and presentation lane. They drop it off there. The associate takes it back through a second secured gate back into the staging area, which would then eventually get put back out onto the sales display. So there's no opportunity at any time for a customer to be driving in the staging or the sales display.
So as Neil said, so it's gotta be definitely so stated on your documents.
They can't be employee parking.
Correct. Yes, all the employee parking is on the public side as well.
How many vehicles would you have there at a given time?
The sales display area hopefully is always full, and there's 100 and I believe 46, 137 in that display area.
Okay.
So the plan will reflect what you just described, and that's only display area parking.
Yeah, I think it's already spelled out on the plans. We can make sure and just add some verbiage if needed, but it's already listed there as sales display. I don't think any operation is listed in here, but we can talk about how to add that to the plan that says that it's only for employees operating.
Display area only. Because
Yeah.
Because of the issue, you're gonna have to be, rule out, parking by the public.
Right.
Parking by employees.
Okay,
That's included, just display only.
no problem.
Do all the cars coming or that are for sale are brought in by the car carrier?
Correct. Yeah. Once the car carrier unloads in the designated area there, employees will drive each vehicle through the presentation lane and back into the staging area.
So all the cars are ready to go?
Yeah.
Off-site?
Correct. Most of the time, there might be some final cleanup that happens on site. There is a small service component of this facility that if they need to rotate some tires or pump up the tires or put fluids in before it's in the display, then that all can take place at this location.
With your entrance, it's the dark there. Is that just for car carriers or that's for the public getting into the plaza?
That's for public. It's just shown in dark because that's heavy duty pavement,
Okay, and then once
which I think should actually also go down to the
the
right.
car carrier gets to the plaza area, it normally, what, makes a U and comes back or drops back to the right to?
There's actually two different ways they can get out. So I think there's
He's got the plan.
okay.
Now,
There is a car
there is
carrier
one for car
plan.
carrier.
Yeah, this one right here. So they can, once they leave the loading, they could either go right or left back onto frontage to either go back out to the Circle Drive or I believe that's Bay Road down there.
Okay, so they never really enter the parking lot of the plaza.
No, not the way we have it designed here.
This is not at this time, but because of what we're looking at, we need to make sure there's a safe passage from your parking lot that's on the south of the road into your site. Even to the point where, because there's idiots that are driving to go to the plaza. They're not caring about your employees, but I think a crosswalk marking with even a signal that wakes them up. I think would be something that if I was your boss, I'd tell you to do it because you're talking about your employees' life, not some idiot that's driving into get in to have breakfast.
Are you talking a crosswalk right at the entrance of
Well, no,
between the
I'm
two?
talking about where your people would park
Yeah.
and where they'd walk across. If it's
Okay.
up at that parking lot, where the turnarounds are, then, that's where you put the crosswalk. I don't know whether there'd be one or maybe there'd be two.
Sure.
But I think you need to look at your employees and their movement and their interaction with the public.
Okay.
So I think what I'm hearing you suggest or ask for, so is this a sidewalk along through here?
I don't believe it. I don't believe it is. I was gonna look at that.
And this is sidewalk over here, right?
Yeah, it's.
So I think you need to establish some sort of pedestrian pathway from this parking lot over to the building.
Sidewalk. Yeah, I think a crosswalk would.
Yeah, so a crosswalk and maybe some signage indicating that. I think, Don, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's kind of what you're asking for, right? is something that's designating a crosswalk and
Right.
and gives us a good pedestrian path from that parking lot to the building.
And
Okay.
this new driveway is the main way in and out, correct?
To
One
the
of two.
CarMax,
One of,
yeah, there's one of several ways now to get into the CarMax. To get into the shopping center, there is this access, and then the southern access point as well. That's existing. So
But
it's
they're on-
essentially the
on
same
direct-
as what's there
but they're
today,
on
just
frontage.
correct on frontage, which is what's there today. This new entrance is just a little bit farther
Where
south.
there was talk of,
Right.
you know, going in off of Circle.
Yeah, so we've had a number of conversations with the highway department, the applicant and the town engineer, and Steve's has been involved to come up with this plan that's acceptable to everybody involved.
Yeah, the one on Circle Drive is just impossible because of the getting to the kickboxing place and.
Yeah, well, the highway department was pretty adamant that they did not want
Oh.
that, so.
But at least when I talked to the highway department, they said, well, you gotta cross 2 lanes. And I said, that's not a good enough excuse for me because 90% of the roads you drive on that are main roads, you gotta go across 2 lanes in order to get to where you're going. But the problem is you can't really get a layout at Circle Drive that makes any sense. Still having getting to the other buildings that are there, the malt shop and the kickboxing one. So I totally agree that that entrance exit would not work there.
This is much better with it
Yeah,
going in and out on front.
yep.
So another issue, I guess, I think that the board needs to weigh in on, or at least look at. Now, we had suggested, so the parking, excuse me, the parking, the car display area here is essentially, there's a decorative fence that runs along this portion of the site, but basically there's also a guide rail that runs along the entire perimeter of that, and we'd asked them to, you know, to soften up the look at that, put in some additional landscaping, which they've shown here. So I guess I'd ask that you kind of explain what's going to be provided there.
Okay.
And see if the board's satisfied with that.
Those are planning to be, low shrubs. The guardrail is about 32 inches, 27 inches, sorry, 27 inches tall. So we'd likely trim the shrubs to be about the same height. And they're there to screen for aesthetic purposes because it is a highway guardrail. It's a galvanized guardrail. So just to add some aesthetics to the frontage there. And we've added those as requested.
What kind of plants do you have in there? And whatever they. typically look like?
What's that? Yeah,
Looks like you got PHSB, SR. Oh, there's PH. So you've got some
usually like more bush shrubby.
some lilac, some grass, some grasses. What else did we say there? SBs, golden flame spirea. I'm not
Yeah,
familiar with that.
grasses.
but-
Yeah. We have to get the landscape architect here to see what all these plants look like. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah. So again, I'm not a landscape architect either, but I don't know what the spacing there, I mean, looks fairly reasonable, but I guess you'd
How
have.
far are they off the highway?
That's probably 10 to 15 feet.
Okay, so the snow being pushed up with the salt won't get these plants, because if they do, you got a 1-year life.
Yeah, and the ability to put trees in that area is limited by the fact that we've got the sewer running through there. So I know the board's been pushing to get more trees along streets and those types of things. And I do believe they have done a good job doing that along the frontages over here where they could do that. But along through here, we have some utility constraints so we don't have trees through there, if you're wondering why that's the case.
So, everybody happy with the landscaping?
Yeah.
Don?
I have a question on the parking. Can you answer the question, how much the parking spaces have been reduced to the plaza that exists there right now?
Do we have those numbers? Okay.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, we,
It's gotta be quite.
Existing, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
here it is. Yeah, existing plaza parking spaces was 579. Parking spaces to be removed 190.
Okay, because I've been there several times on the weekends, and as it sets right now, that place is almost full. So now by reducing that, and what's the dimensions on the parking on the east side of your property? What's the dimensions on those?
Oh, those are 9 by 20 spaces. So those all meet the code
Those are
requirement.
compliant.
Those are compliant. And we do have some existing plaza parking data on the front cover sheet here. So we do have the existing parking at 579, reducing by 190. And then parking spaces provided after the subdivision 389. And then we have a breakdown of all of the different uses there today and an assumed rate or factor of parking based on their square footages. And you can read all of these here. There's about 8 of them. But when you total up all of the uses and their parking counts based on square footages, total required is 360, and we're providing 389.
And you definitely have abandoned the thought process of coming off Circle Drive in and out.
yes.
Yes.
Not by choice. I think that would solve a lot of our problems, but I think that topic has been discussed.
And with the buildings and everything and the parking spaces and all that, what's the plan to snow removal?
Well, we have the area all along the,
Yes, on the parking, I just want to, this information's just been provided. We will review that to make sure that it makes sense and that we think adequate parking is being provided there.
I believe we were recommending adding a hatched area for snow removal, but I think it was recommended that it didn't be put on the plan. I can't remember if that was from your group or.
Well, I mean, one of the things we asked for and you have provided is, some green space in here that provides a buffer to the adjacent property and also could be used for snow storage.
That's correct, yeah.
So, really what you've got is this area available through here for snow storage on the site. On the Carmack site, I guess you're looking at.
Yeah, the Carmack site would, have to deal with that internally, that they would take up some sales spaces if needed and things like that.
Yep. That's it. I'm all set.
Mark, anything else?
I think the only other thing, there's been some comments about signage and those types of things, and whether it's excessive or not on buildings. And I think, again, so I'd urge the board to look at the signage plan that's been provided and the architectural elevations. The only thing that, stood out to me is there's 2 Carmack signs on the front of the building. I don't know if you need 2 or whether one's sufficient, but again, it's up to the board to discuss that. And unfortunately, I don't have the elevations to put up here in the packet. I don't believe. I can double check that though. Yeah, there's signage. Yeah, I don't think this has changed. This might.
Yeah, these elevations show it a little better.
Okay.
Are the
Yeah,
elevations?
no, go ahead.
That's the frontage for you.
I-
So we do have the 2 peaks and then
These are the elevations here that we have. I don't know if they're current.
they should be current. Yeah, that hasn't really changed much. Yeah, so you do have the Carmax on the main peak, which is the main entrance. And then you have the other panel sign on the service building.
Very much.
And that the one below that is the one facing Circle Drive. So there's one. Just one Carmack side facing Circle Drive. On frontage road, you have one up near that main intersection, but you have one kind of down the line of the building.
So I just, again, just to give the applicant direction, I just informal poll to the board whether they feel that's
Gentlemen,
acceptable.
As far as the sign.
the two,
Well,
the
yeah,
question is the
it's-
two CarMax signs on the one side, I guess, right?
Yeah, basically, I mean, you know, again, I think most of it seems pretty reasonable, but again, there's been some discussions of signage and whether or not it should be looked at a little closer sometimes.
Why does it say service? Why do you have a sign that says service?
So the service, so if a customer is bringing their vehicle to the CarMax site for a service. Not a lot of people know this and they may not use it all the time because they have their preferred oil change location. But if you wanted to bring your car to CarMax for an oil change, you can do that.
Okay.
So if
I
you're
didn't-
bringing your
I
car to
didn't know
service,
that.
you park it near the service. That's more of like a directional signage, even though it is on the building. Just so people know where to go. It's also the presentation lane that's just kind of in the service realm. When a car is delivered to the site, that's going to go back into the staging area. They drop it off at the service bay.
That's open to the public.
Not up until that sign. And then then an
You have a
employee has to
CarMax
take it
car.
back through the gate. Yeah,
You don't service other cars.
I'm sorry, other cars.
You know, if I didn't buy my car at CarMax,
I think,
you would not service my
I think-
car, would you?
no, you can,
You can.
you can.
Well.
Not a lot of people do. It's not overly advertised that we're like a Jiffy Lube. But you can bring your car to CarMax for an oil change.
Well, I think that needs to be something in what we're talking about, because at least what I think of is a used car lot. You go buy a car and maybe they'll fix my car for a year or so, but you're saying you literally could go to CarMax to get an oil change. So now it's a service situation to the open public, which talks about car numbers and people numbers and parking spaces and.
Sure, and generally, I mean, there's a lot of CarMaxes and they know their customer base and generally it's not a high generator of the traffic going to the CarMax location. Out of the 240 that are around the country, it's not a main operation of the store.
Do they normally use a lift or a pit?
The lift. There's a lift. Yep. I think there was one other just question on parking. Just want to make sure that we're getting all of the questions answered about just the number of customer and employee parking spaces. Mark, you had some concerns about that, right?
I think the concern was that it be noted on the plans
Just like
and.
why the
again,
quantity is the way.
Yeah, I
the
mean,
number it
if
is.
you want to review that with the board, that would be good.
Okay.
Yes.
So yes, we are providing 69 customer and employee parking spaces. So that's every other parking space that's striped on the plan outside of the display lot. I'm here to answer questions about it, but it's really based on the operation of all the other stores. They know how many parking spaces they need to operate. That's customers, that's employees. I know a lot of codes dictate parking counts on square footages, but CarMax operates out of a very small footprint. Because their display is fully outside, they don't have a large building, which then factors into the parking counts. There's a lot of flex parking where like if you and your significant other need to drop off the car for a service, then you have two cars parking at the site. So there's just flexibility there. It's not strictly how many employees, how many customers, and the square footage of the buildings, but I'm happy to answer any questions on that number.
How many service bays are there?
There are 4.
So 4 mechanics.
I believe 4 main mechanics. I don't have the total employee count is somewhere between 20 and 30 max. And that's including like shift changes and things like that.
Your normal opening hours, I'm sure you told us, but are what? 8 to
Yeah, so each location is a little bit different. They set it based on, the other businesses in town. So the store hours will get set a little closer to the opening of the store, but it's generally 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then Sundays is a little bit shorter of an hour based on local laws or things like that on Sundays.
What were the comments on the signs? Any questions or concerns with the signage?
Okay, so there's 2 signs on the building that say CarMax.
Correct.
3.
Plus
Yeah.
the sign that says service.
On the one face, yes.
3. Okay, 3
Well,
signs on the building that say CarMax.
well, one faces Circle Drive, so that's a different facade. On the one facade on the top there's 2 CarMax signs and 1 service sign.
But they're all on the building.
Correct.
Well, there is also a freestanding sign at the corner.
There will, yes, again, yeah,
Okay,
freestanding sign at the corner.
that's what I was wondering.
How big
Alright.
is that sign going to be?
I believe,
It's a little too high. It is in the sign package here. There you go.
25 feet. Oh, I think you had mentioned 24 as a max.
24 is the
That's fine.
max.
We can
Yeah,
reduce that
so
down to
that's
24.
Not significant, but it needs to be modified to be compliant.
We'll reduce that down to 24. It's no-
Yeah, so the sign
Hey,
itself, is-
25, Steve just comes and cuts it down.
Yeah.
so it's 5'9" by 17 and change.
Is that a backlit type sign?
It's not, no,
Not lit?
no. I don't know if it's lit from the bottom, like in the grass, but it might be lit from the bottom in the grass, but it's not, it doesn't have.
Well,
internal lighting.
that's got to reflect on the plans, if that's going to be the case. And generally, the board does not like. that.
Needs to be
Okay.
internal if you're gonna light it.
Okay. And I apologize, I just actually don't know which way it is, but we'll take that into account.
Mark, are other topics?
No, I mean, I think again, that's all the, again, there's quite a bit on here, but again, most of this is just technical issues that I think could be resolved without the board's input. I think we've addressed or discussed the issues that the board needs to weigh in on.
I think I have everything that I would have liked to discuss tonight as well.
Any of the board members have any other questions or comments?
Well, just a comment on the offsite situation is, I assume most of these car carriers are gonna be coming in from 41.
That's correct.
Circle.
Yep.
When you get to the light to turn on the frontage, it's so tight. It's gonna be a problem for the car carriers.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways to get to the site. So the truck route hasn't been, and it's not ever clearly, every truck has to go that way. But there are several ways into the site. I think we've run the truck templates and it all seems to work. From a-
So I point that out.
Okay.
All right, we're all set. Thank you.
I have one thing to bring up.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. So you may recall at their first presentation, the North Syracuse Fire Department has some concerns about their apparatus navigating this layout and turning radius. Since that time, the fire department has provided their equipment dimensions and turning radius. They have just provided the turning movements in this set of drawings that were sent electronically yesterday. Those still need to be distributed and the North Syracuse Fire Department get a chance to look at that. So I encourage the applicant to communicate with them on these to make sure there's no modifications necessary for this.
Good point. All right, we're all set. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Brings us to the last item. This is a continuation of a site plan review for proposed new equipment dealership on Northern Boulevard Eastman Road. Still awake?
Scott Freeman.
Like to know.
Madam Clerk, come on, Fred, I'm gonna be talking. That's the latest
architecture, maybe while I'm passing this out, we did have one plan change regarding how we're gonna wash the vehicles in. Okay.
Thank you.
Kind of like that.
We can share.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We've got a concrete pad. Does that work? Can you guys hear me? Push. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, there we go. There's a concrete pad behind the building, kind of on the left of that picture.
Could I have your name, please?
Oh, Adam Clark.
Clarky for short.
Clarky. So,
There's a pointer somewhere.
He must have left it up there. Yep.
yeah, okay.
Sure, yeah.
So the dimensions aren't specific yet. I'm still shopping vendors. It's a pain in the butt right now. It's trying to get things, anything mechanical right now is still tough. But I think I'm gonna go with this particular vendor. And basically what it does is it recycles the water that we wash the machines with. I think car washes recycle most of their water as well. And I've got an engineered drawing where all the water will slope to one sump. It goes into like a settling pond where the solids like the mud and the dirt and the stones collect, the major ones. And then the water gets pumped into another system. I've got a couple of these here. That you guys can look at. And it somehow makes the oils and it's got some sort of bacteria that eats the oil and the grease that comes off the machine and cleans the water, and then we can reuse it over and over again. The only water that's lost is water that's lost through evaporation or that sticks to the machines when they get driven off of the pad. So that way, I mean, I think like 90, depending on the time of the year, if it's summer, I'm guessing there's more evaporation, but you know, the vast majority of the water gets reused over and over again. And it doesn't go off site, it goes into one pit. And then we just, according to the manufacturer, we just refill that. It is, as the water evaporates or gets carried off on the machines because they're wet. You can fill it up with a garden hose, he said, at the end of the day. So I was looking at a fully automated system, but the manufacturer originally quoted me $120,000. And then when I went to get a final purchase order done, it was 200,000. So I was kind of like, oh.
But
I mean,
the bottom line though is the material is trucked off. It doesn't.
yeah, the
there's
material is
there's no
captured and trucked off.
discharge.
So no discharge into the sewer, no discharge like onto the ground. But it's just.
Yes, can we get maybe just so I know you're still looking for a specific vendor or.
I think I'm gonna go with that guy.
It gets just, can we get a general note on the plan that indicates that, you know, that there won't be any sort of runoff generated from.
I can get you the engineered drawing that they've done. Where the pad pitches to one sump and then into a tank. And then you can see how it's all like more detail.
Yeah.
How it works.
I'd like to get the general note on there too, just to.
Yeah, we got that. No problem.
Indicate we're not
Okay.
gonna have runoff from that area, because I think if we did, there would probably be a illicit discharge issue relative to.
We have a trench drain. We're going to collect it self-contained.
Yeah.
We were just holding back a little bit. I just want to back up a little bit here.
Yep.
We don't want to go. The purpose of our appearance here tonight is to let you know that we're not ready for a full submission. We received a lot of information within the past couple of weeks, and we talked to Steve, and he advised not to try and, you know, push it all in last minute. But I do want to go through 5 or 6 items. A couple of them require board input because we're Mark Shattuck, who's not with us tonight, is working closely with Adam Clark. So what we're trying to do is price this whole thing and get it down to, you know, 1 or 2 items. And the last item actually is water supply with the fire department and the MEP where they're hot box outside. We talked to Mark a little bit about it. So that's the last thing we're going to design, but we want to hold that off to last because we didn't fully authorize the MEP and the architecture of the design. We will do that. We're not going to try and skip a step. I just want to let you know we're here for an update and we're not pressuring for site plan approval because we don't have everything, but we did make a lot of progress. We did receive a Mark's second set of comments, but we didn't have time to distribute those out to the team, but I wanted to go over that tonight, the DOT response, and I think we're all set with the wash unit. So I'm going to go over the Mark's latest plan information from Onondaga County Transportation, had some minor comments and we've addressed those. I don't think we need to go with those. Mark will receive the an updated set of plans, a full submission in the next couple of days, and then we'll be ready to come back. So there were some DOT comments. We've addressed them on the plans. Second comment was location of display areas along Northern Boulevard should be reviewed with the planning board. I believe our last appearance, we had them located right on the property line. And at that meeting, we had a discussion. Somebody said, move it 5 feet off the road. I think we moved it. If you zoom in at the closest location, it's 5 feet. And I can't read that, but it's 5 at the minimum. It's 16 feet there. There's 3 of them. It's 5 foot at that location. And I think the third one, if you scroll down, that one's way back. So they're 5 to 16 feet. I mean, the big thing is the county doesn't want any work in the right of way. Our initial plan, we had regraded this swale next to Northern Boulevard. And since they took away the egress, or that which isn't needed, Adam didn't need it and the county didn't want it. So we took all our work out of the right of way. So we're avoiding interaction with whatever they have there, so for any impact or design issues, we've taken off the table. So there's no impact, no construction between the property line and Northern Boulevard. So I just wanted to point that out. We even took our detention basin, our wet pond, and moved it over, including the discharge pipe, just slid everything over just to keep it simple. So while I'm talking about those guys, we did get 4 comments back from the from OCDOT, Onondaga County, and one was they made a statement. They said that the detention basin, should you fence it for safety? And we called them up and said, is that a requirement? Is this you shall or you should? He goes, well, it's a recommendation. I said, well, what does your recommendation mean? So he called us back and he said, well, it's at the board's discretion. So it didn't come up in your review, Mark. I mean, typically DEC states you have the general slopes. It's limited. You're not near apartments, playgrounds, schools. So we didn't think it was a big deal. So it's in the comment letter and you'll receive it. That was 1. 2 was, as noted in the traffic study, the corner radius at the Northern Eastman Road Boulevard, it says should be increased, not shall be increased. For what it's worth, Adam and the design team, if you look at the southern entrance drive, we widened it from 24 feet to 30 because Eastman Road's not a real wide road. And with Adam's trucks and equipment coming in, we widened that road. And that was actually a comment you guys made at the last meeting. We also slid our gate back. I don't know what the dimension is, but it's wide for the first, I don't know what that is, 50, 60 feet. And then it narrows and we have an automatic slide gate. Yeah, there you go. 50 feet. And then we have a 26-foot transition area. And then we have a gate and then we have a couple of bollards and we're not fencing the whole site. Doesn't make sense. Once you get off the shoulders of the road, you're into mud, you'll be stuck. So that's how that works. And then they said, if applicable, work zone traffic control plan for all work within the right of way on Northern. So if it's okay with you and we're not doing the radius at the corner, then we don't have any interaction with the county. That's how I read that. So that was really the county comments. Mark's first set of comment letter, we responded to all of those and you have those. We've addressed all those comments. Mark's since provided a second comment letter and those we had. Let me just back up one more thing. The county did review the traffic study and said the traffic impact study is acceptable. And we'll provide that in the next submission. And they also said that the SWIP is acceptable you know, and one of the parameters was to push it out of there right away. And I believe, Mark, you're pretty much complete with your review of the SWIP.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, he's, Mark, you got one more look at this thing with the remaining items. I think.
Yeah, I think you've addressed, Steve, the subdivision had been filed, correct?
Subdivision has been filed.
Subdivision is complete.
Yeah, we did do, yeah, that's on our note as well. Subdivisions have been filed. And then we had on our comment letter here, materials and construction colors should be noted in building elevations, and that's why we provided that. So I know it's getting late. You don't have to respond tonight unless anything jumps out at you with numbers of signs or heights or colors. Let us know. I'm not an architect. I mean, you spoke with Jeff. I think we tried to get everything on there. Do you guys have any comments architecturally or?
Well, it's a nice looking building. There's no question about that.
Does look nice.
Yeah, nice. The front part, is that going to be 3 stories?
2.
Okay, because it looks like it'll be a high 2 on the second.
I think the building sides are 30 feet just because we want tall for getting the machines in. But I
Well, yeah,
don't,
in that part, sure.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, how high is a story?
Yeah. I mean,
I wouldn't do 3 stories, I don't think.
Yeah.
The way they've got it laid out, the architects is 2 stories. And there's like some square footage parameter. I mean, I had no idea how many things I had to do. Like I thought I'd be. Like, I'll be in there by spring next year.
almost there, almost there. Be nice, be nice.
It's not fun. It's just like me being naive and, you know, like every time you go out a little bit, all of a sudden you have to add a sprinkler system. I'm like, if you do this, you gotta put an elevator in or an escalator.
Oh, he learned. He was talking pylon signs. We're like, no. So yeah, built. We don't even have a monument sign. The only sign is the signage on the building and the 3 display areas and all the trucks. That's really the advertisement for this facility. So
Yeah.
It's right up to the standards of across the road.
That's gonna be a big building. I don't know if it's done yet, but I think it's 70,000 square feet.
Yeah,
That's a big one.
the Fusilla building.
Yeah, yeah.
But so I guess you did mention the storage and equipment storage areas. I guess is there any desire on the board's part for screening or fencing or anything around those areas?
I guess the only thing I would say before you respond, Adam, is this is all new equipment. It's not used. It's not an auto body place where there's car parts everywhere. I mean, it's all new equipment. It's well maintained. It's
I
washed.
think my average days in inventory is about 90 days in inventory. You know, you always have something that like, why isn't this one selling? But like all my inventory, it's about a 90-day turn. So it's not like I got stuff sitting in the weeds. So
How tall are those overhead doors I'm looking at?
I can't remember off the top of my head. There's a lot of things in the shop where I just said to my service manager, whatever.
You get some tall machines you gotta get in there.
Yeah. I know they're tall. I know that. Yeah, we've got some overhead cranes and so.
Sure.
But it is amazing how many moving parts there are. Because I've never done anything like this before. And it's. You guys view it more often than I do, but to actually go out and do it for the first time, it's almost like,
Yeah,
so.
gotcha.
Are you renting equipment too, or just selling?
90% is selling, 10% is renting. When I first started, I was renting. That's why the website's Clark Rents, but as time has gone on. I bet you after maybe 5 or 6 years, I was like, I gotta sell, because I mean, you can't dig right now. Nobody does anything for about 6 months out of the year. December, January, February, March, shot weather-wise. April's not that good. Really, you've got a 6-month window to make your money if you're gonna rent, but we sell equipment year-round. And when they did the traffic study, I didn't even realize January and February are my number 2 and number 3 months for volume. Like that came into play. They're like, well, how much does your volume going down in January and February? And August is number 1.
January #2, February #3 in sales volume. And that's because a lot of our stuff is going out of state, out of country. So.
So they're planning ahead.
Yep, yep.
If I can go back to Mark's question.
Yeah,
Mark, you
yeah.
talked about
Yeah, screening and planting.
storage here, probably wouldn't not be a bad idea to get some shrubbery or trees along this area, right? Is that what you're talking, Mark?
There's a lot of trees there right now, like,
Is
I
there?
think I'm most sensitive, see where the I think it's, see where the septic field is, like. I actually asked Steve, is it okay for me to plant trees? He said, wait, hold up a little bit. Cause I wanted to go up there when the leaves are down, cause there's a house in that north. That corner that, when the leaves are down, you can kind of see it, and I'd really like to plant, you can't use the giant green arborvitae. Somebody said that the deer eat them. Those are kind of like real tight pine trees, but I'd like to put some pine trees in there. You zoom in. Yeah, that house right there is.
Yeah,
probably closest one.
The septic's like right here and
Yeah,
we're,
that one you can kind of see right now, the guy to the north, you can't see him at all.
So this will all stay.
Yeah, it's like the property line, if you see where the
Right.
mouse is, the mouse arrow. Like that pond, like that guy's east-west right there.
that's the property
So
line.
The guy to the north of me, you can't see him at all, but that guy right there with the pond, you can kind of see him, and I really wanna. Once we get in there and. I'll put some pine trees up, stagger them, kind of zigzag, so you won't see us. But other than that, the ones on the south on Eastern Road, you can't really see them, there's a lot of buffer there. Yeah.
So I guess the question is, do you want to leave the number on there or would you like us to add a number to the plan, add 6 or 7 more evergreens to be field located during construction? Just trying to,
Yes.
If we zigzag them, we can stagger them so they can't see it. It'll be screened nicely.
how many more you want?
I don't know.
Pick a number.
Once,
Screening is always good.
however they.
Bigger numbers better.
6,
Bigger number.
12, 20.
42.
All right, we'll go, I work for him, so we'll go with 10. How's that sound?
Ashley's not here, so we have.
say our tree lady's not here tonight.
Well, I mean, you get one more chance. We'll put the 10 plants on here. We're gonna redo the set. This, we're not here to pressure you. We're just here to give you an update. We just want to
Appreciate
pick up the loose ends,
I
so.
think the big thing is we took the road off of Northern Boulevard, the entrance there.
Why did you
That's
do
on
that?
there. The county didn't want us on Northern
Forget
Boulevard.
the county for a minute. I would, when I saw that, when I read the county thing and I underlined it. I mean, and especially with Eastman Road being as narrow as it is. And I think granted, a lot of your new equipment will go who knows where, but a lot of the rental will probably tend to be north. So I just don't know why we should be giving up a entrance from Northern Boulevard into your site. But I mean, if that's what you want, that's.
I mean,
Can-
I think 90% of it's gonna come from, 95% will come from 481. The traffic will come in and out of 481.
But didn't I read somewhere where we're not allowed to turn left on Eastman Road? Either way, north or south onto. Somewhere I read where the county said we couldn't take a left-hand turn. So I'm saying, well, then how the hell do we get into this place? We can make if we're coming south, we can turn right into Eastman. But if we're coming north, and if they don't let us, and I guess it's probably because of the narrowness of because they referred to the jug handle at the church.
Beacon North.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Beacon North.
I think they did not want large,
Right.
trucks taking a left to go north from Eastman Road onto Northern Boulevard because there's not adequate width to the median. I think is what you're talking about, right?
I'm sure that's true, but I mean, is there a way to take part of the median as a lane such that if you were gonna make a left-hand turn into Eastman coming from 481, you would actually be looking north until you saw a clear path, then you would turn left and go into Eastman Road.
I think you can take
Yeah,
the
you
left
can take a left there,
onto Eastman Road if you're traveling north.
northbound, you could take a left on
Big
Eastman.
trucks, maybe.
I think what Mark is talking about, exiting.
If
Eastman.
you're leaving Eastman
Eastman.
Road and traveling east, you can't take a left to go north
Go north.
onto Northern Boulevard
Then you
because
go
there's
down Beacon
inadequate.
North and turn around at Beacon North.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that's what you're supposed to do, right?
But-
So
but it was-
what they're saying is this width here. If a tractor trailer came out,
You'd be
there's not
blocking.
enough width here for for the vehicle to sit here without blocking the traffic here. So that's what they're saying. You gotta go south, go down to the jug handle, and if you want to come back to the north.
See, and I'm saying you take that grass area and you make it a left-hand turn lane.
Oh, I see, like a third lane, so
Yeah.
you could merge.
I mean, we're thinking about an operation that's gonna be here for a few years. And the time it takes to go up to the church and turn around and come back and
Well-
Go north and Eastman.
No, I think you can make this movement here. You can come up to north and take a left onto Eastman.
you sure? Cause I thought I read where we couldn't make a left onto
Well, what is-
Eastman either direction.
What's the traffic impact study say?
Still gotta sit on it.
It'll be on it.
Yeah, that's,
I don't recall that.
I haven't read
I
it.
recall the no left onto Northern Boulevard, but I don't the other. You may be correct. I just don't recall it.
on their 215 list, there's 4 items. They said the impact study was acceptable. And there's no limitations that I see there. You know, it might be within the, I didn't bring the traffic impact study. I guess the biggest outstanding item, I think, and Steve and I had discussion on it, is the inadequate water pressure in the area, and we're fully aware of it. And our engineering team is ready to do it. And you know, once a month from now, or when we resubmit all this, that would be the last item. And I guess it's Adam and your contractor's decision to go ahead with that design, or if we can have a contingent. Yeah.
I think the last thing we talked about was doing like a pump or something, right?
Yeah, but you and Mark need to talk about getting MEP going, and
What's MEP?
mechanical, electrical, plumbing. They need to work out the pressure.
All right.
Some of it'll be our engineer. If it's outside, if it's inside, it'll be the MEP. So they didn't hire them yet. So that's the,
We did the highway garage. We paid through the nose for a fire pump because we don't have enough pressure, blah, blah, blah.
yeah, we know.
Had to pay extra for the generator to make it big enough to run the pump. So you
Yeah.
talk about the things, Don and I went through that building from start one. Let me tell you, county owes us a new tank. Power, I mean, because it's not just in one spot anymore.
I think you have to I have to put a storage unit in or something like that.
Storage, a temporary storage unit or a pump, because you have to meet the fire fire protection needs.
The other probably, I don't.
Yeah. It'd probably be a
And we
pump.
went through that crap with a neighbor across the street.
That was different.
Yeah, their needs
That's-
are much greater than our needs.
Right. He doesn't want to know what that was. He won't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get one more shot at it. Will probably be end of March submission for first week in April, but we just wanted to get your feedback and give you an update where we were before we didn't want to do Steve advised, don't do a submittal half baked, just come in and give an update. So that's kind of where we are.
Perfect. I appreciate it.
Another thought, if you're coming off Eastman and you want to end up going north, just make a right, get onto 41, get off 81 north, and you're gone.
Yeah. You do a lot of that in Cicero.
I have one more question. Where's the Clarkey ads? That new one you got,
I let my salesman do it.
you've got them 2 guys that are on there now, and I'm like, What the heck?
Lori.
Did you say they are employees?
Yeah, they're my salesman.
You were a better salesman than them.
Thank you, thank you. We got a good one planned for our next one. will be-
Okay, I'll be looking.
Keep us informed.
Well, you'll see.
Good project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, we'll get a package in and we'll. The water will be right down to the last minute, I'm sure.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
One quick thing, because of the hour, just want to let the board know that the comprehensive update plan process has started. We had a meeting Monday, both with the codes update committee and then with the steering committee that included, I think, 12 residents were there. And the meetings were terrific. They went really, really well. The input from the residents was terrific. So thanking the town board for getting that process going. Nancy? And that's all I have. Anything else from anybody? We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, meeting is adjourned.